Welcome to the WorkJoy Jam podcast. I'm Beth Stallwood, your host and founder of Create WorkJoy. Today I am joined by the wonderful Ruth Coates, and I was introduced to Ruth by another one of our podcast guests. And she is a psychotherapist and somebody who has really started to work on and has an amazing program that helps people with their challenges, with their struggles, with things that they need to work through via writing as therapy. And I thought, wow, what a really interesting perspective to come on and talk a little bit more about this and to think about how that can help to bring us some work joy as well. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Ruth. I know I did. Lots of great hints and tips, and I'll pop on at the end to give you some of my takeaways. Hello and welcome to the WorkJoy Jam podcast. I am joined today by the fantastic Ruth Coates, who has the most amazing background. I'm really interested to dig into it and understand where she gets her joy from and where she can tell us a little bit of her advice. But rather than me introduce her, it's almost much better if she introduces herself. So Ruth, over to you. Tell us a bit about you, where you've come from, what you do, and how you got to where you are today.
Lovely. Hi, Beth. It's great to chat to you today. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm based in East Lothian, sunny East Lothian, a little town just half an hour south of Edinburgh. So that's where I'm based, and I've been a psychotherapist for about 11 years. I actually qualified when I was pregnant with my first child, so that was a heady time. I've been practicing pretty much ever since in various different sectors. But my career has really been in the voluntary sector, actually, the whole time. So kind of 23 years and counting in the mental health and social justice sector in various roles. So I've worked in homelessness, and I've worked in employability, mental health advocacy and befriending. I've worked with postnatal depression and family therapy projects. So it's been really a mixed bag. And most recently I'm a trauma therapist for the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre as well. And that's actually coming to an end quite soon. But I really have taken all that experience into my private psychotherapy work, which has been bubbling along, like I say, for about 10 years alongside that, 10 or 11 years. And so what I've found over those years is that I've gravitated more towards creative ways of working with clients. So I see clients one-to-one. And over the last year or two, I've really developed more creative ways. So at the moment, I'm thick in the middle of a therapeutic writing course. And this is something I've been doing for just over a year now. So it's kind of joining writing and therapy together. And I'm also been dabbling with a bit of movement too. So I'm almost a qualified animal flow instructor too. So there's a few things going on, but it's been a really amazing journey, actually. I've constantly learning, constantly being challenged, and really just learning most actually from the people that I support. That's where I learn the most. Yeah.
It's such an amazing background. And I kind of really want to just say thank you for doing that work, because I think it's really important work, and it's not work that everybody can do, that everyone feels able to do, but supporting some of the most vulnerable people is a fantastic thing to offer to people with all of your skills and abilities. So thank you for that. And I'm so interested in this. And I was scribbling some notes down, and then I realized that I was doing shorthand for psychotherapist and calling it psycho, and thinking that's probably not the best thing to write. But I thought I'd share that with you because I don't think that at all. And I'm really fascinated, and I'm gonna dig into this in a minute about how you're combining creativity and movement with therapy, because I know a lot of people, and probably including myself, we have a very stereotypical view of what therapy might look like.
Yeah.
And I think isn't it, from all the media and stuff like that? It's like
Yeah.
you're lying on a sofa and someone's digging into your deepest, darkest past. And it's really interesting to hear of different innovative ways. And I have no idea, so I'm going to get you to tell me what animal flow is. I mean, I love animals, so whenever anyone says animals, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board, even though I have no idea what that is. So tell me a little bit more, first of all, about this idea of bringing the hybrid of creativity and therapy together. And what
Yeah.
led you down that direction, and how does it work? Tell us more.
Do you know what, Beth? That's really helped me put a little piece in place, actually, because what I think when you talked about like the stereotypical view of counselling and psychotherapy, I think what I've done over these last few years is really liberated myself from that stereotype
Oh,
by
okay.
like following my own intuition about what works with people and what people really want, like that human interaction, which is actually about creativity, and maybe not the creativity we immediately jump to. It's not about art necessarily. It's not about kind of being really good at drawing or, you know, even drama and things like that. It's maybe not. I think creativity is far more commonplace and everyday than we think, and I can get into that in a bit if you like. But um, where the writing comes from for me is, it's, do you know when you kind of get to a point in your life and you look back and you realize why you did certain things that you maybe didn't at the time,
Yeah, you have
choices you
like a
made.
total aha moment, like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
12 years later, we now understand a major decision. At the time, we
Exactly.
didn't know
Yeah.
what we were doing.
Just kind of blindly going forward, going, yeah, this feels okay. So I actually did English literature. And this is why I don't come from Edinburgh, but I moved from Darlington, the northeast of England, to go to Edinburgh University. And I did English literature there, which I only chose and was very grateful to, you know, very privileged to get that place, because I love it, because I love English literature. I've always loved reading, always loved writing. And what the piece that kind of fell into place for me, that kind of light bulb moment that we talked about, is that I realized the reason why I love it all is because it's always about relationships. It's all about human relationships. And the
Yeah.
study of English literature in particular is about really the study of empathy, about what's going on in people's minds and what's going on in relationship dynamics and families and histories. And that was my aha moment of going, that was my preparation for becoming a counselor, becoming a psychotherapist. That was really, you know, it's not always a formal route, is it? And I could quite easily say to you, oh yeah, that was just something I did. It was kind of, I wish I'd done something else at university,
Yeah.
but I don't, you know, I know that was part of my training, really. um and so
I
that's,
love that. And it's
yeah.
so interesting. I think about that for myself sometimes. Like you don't always see the connections when you're going through it. You see the
Mm,
connections in reverse, like when you're looking back. But
yeah.
I've never sat down and considered this. And like you've slightly blown my mind a little bit now around the idea that actually when you look at literature, it is all about empathy, family, and history. That's what
Yeah. Yeah.
happens in every book, every novel that I
Yeah.
read. And
In
I'm like,
fact,
wow, okay. Never even thought about it like that. So thank you.
it's wonderful. It's like escaping into a different world, isn't it? But one of my counselling tutors, actually, on my diploma, one of the things he said to us all at one point, which really stuck in my mind, was the best thing you can do. It was actually just before we began, and people were trying to be keen beans and saying, you know, what can we read? What texts can we read to prepare for this course? And he said, read novels. And that was just, oh
Oh,
wow,
really?
I can read novels. And I just thought that was great
Official
advice.
homework of having fun. Okay.
Yeah, doing what you love. Um, so yeah, and so I've just naturally carried that on in different ways, and you know, been an avid reader that whole time, and looking for support and inspiration from books as well. It's not just an escape; it's a kind of real nourishment for me. But I've also used writing quite intuitively in my one-to-one psychotherapy for years. So I'll talk about, you know, we've been using things like the unwritten letter, the unsent letter, sorry, we'll write it, or the person will go away and write it, my client, and then they'll either burn it or bin it or shred it, or, but the whole idea is that they don't send it. Or I'll encourage people to journal at the end of a session, maybe, or once a week, to support their therapeutic growth, and to support the sessions, actually. So writing's always been there in my therapeutic work. It's just never been quite centralized in this way that I'm doing now. And really naming the kind of the therapeutic value of it and the beauty and the joy of it, actually. Yeah.
So tell me a bit more, because I love, I love to write as well, and I love to read.
Yeah.
So I'm totally on board with the idea of it. I love the idea of the unsent letter.
Yeah, isn't it great?
Tell me a bit more about what that is, because I think that could be an exercise that a lot of people who are listening would like. I'd quite like to do that. So
Mm.
give us a little tip about how we could do something in that world.
So when people come to a therapeutic session, you know, it's often with some kind of frustration, some kind of unspoken truth that they want to get off their chest and express. And actually, it's brilliant being listened to and being heard by a therapist. But sometimes we need to direct it out of ourselves towards the person. But that person, it might not, might not really want to, send that letter, have that in their kind of environment, let that person receive it for whatever reason, and they might actually not be around anymore, that person. So whether
Yeah.
it's about anger or whether it's about love or sadness or regret, there's still that directional energy in writing a letter and addressing it to that person from your heart and soul, and then deciding what to do with that letter next, whether it's folding it away and putting it in the back of your diary or in a drawer somewhere, or actually saying, now I'm going to ceremoniously burn this thing. You get to
Yeah,
decide
like
what
to let
happens
it
next.
go.
Yeah, it's a real, and I really believe this about writing. It's a transformational experience. There is neuroscience behind this, actually, Beth, about putting
Yeah, tell me more, because I love to nerd out on a bit of
neuroscience is
neuroscience.
brilliant, isn't it? So do I. um,
So good. I mean, I don't understand half of it, but I like the simple version. So if you could do me
if I could do the
the
simple
simple
version.
the simple version, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, basically, putting words to our feelings lights up the brain in a really supportive and um, transformative way. It makes change happen. So it takes us from point A to point B faster than if we just sat with our feelings, not really naming them. And for me, we can name them verbally with another in a safe and confidential way. Or we can name them really powerfully by writing it down. And there is a neuroscientific link with that, where your brain, the act of writing, it's a physical act, writing, it's a physical activity. So there is a connection, a neurological connection between your hand basically and your brain. So it's almost like a flow state. So you're kind of fully wired, fully
Yeah.
connected. And the part of our brain, the amygdala, that is the kind of fire alarm in our brain. So what they've noticed is that if we write and name our feelings in writing, that activity in the amygdala, that kind of stress response, quietens. And what they were really
Yeah.
amazed by in these tests and these experiments were that a part of the frontal cortex, so the front of your brain, lit up, that's really about processing information. So while the kind of stress response went down, the understanding went up. And I think that's what we've been doing ever since we could write. We've been helping ourselves, resourcing ourselves to move through emotional change. So that's why I harness. That's why what I've brought together is writing and therapy to really specifically harness on those resources that we have to actually help ourselves. Yeah.
So interesting. And yeah, that neuroscience thing about, I've been reading about it, that link between the brain and the hand, like writing stuff, the
Yeah.
physical stuff. So sometimes when I'm coaching people, I'm encouraging them to do stuff, I actually encourage them to write with a pen and paper rather than type stuff, because
Mm.
there's something I think that happens there. Now, I don't think it's all proven whether it's different if you type it or not, but there's something about the connection of pen and paper and your brain. And I definitely feel that. I know when I write stuff, is I do feel calmer, and
Mm.
I do feel able to process things. I feel like my more logical brain versus my stress brain
Yeah.
comes into play. So I
Yeah.
I I can totally relate to the science there. I
Yeah.
can think, yeah, that's really interesting. And I love the idea of being able to kind of name your emotions in that way and being able to connect and understand them better.
Yeah. And it's I mean, there's so many, it's almost kind of limitless what you can do in therapeutic writing, the different styles, the different creative tasks and exercises that you can help people through. So there's the letter, and there's something that I call note to self, where you direct the letter to a part of yourself, or to a future self or a past version of yourself. And that can be really supportive and revealing, actually. And then there's free writing, where you just go with an object in the room and you describe it, and then you realize you're writing about memories and associations. And I really take um, time to make sure that people are relaxed in sessions as well, so that we do some relaxation and meditation techniques within therapeutic writing sessions, so that people are most available to themselves, so they can get out what they most need. It's quite a unique
I've done
environment to
some free
cultivate.
writing.
Pardon?
Yeah, and I know I've done free writing before. I do it quite a lot actually. If I just if I feel like there's something on my mind but I don't know what it is, sometimes I just sit down and see what comes out.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you don't know what's going to come. You have no idea,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's there, and you're like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you might be staring at like some flowers or something, and then suddenly realize that what you're thinking about is something completely different.
It's incredible what's just there at our fingertips. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
And it's and that's time. And this is one of the challenges, though, isn't it? Is that time and space to actually do it, to reflect, to use that
Yeah.
opportunity and those resources to make it happen.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love it. I could dig for hours and hours and talk to you more about it. And I'll talk to you more about it in a minute. But now in my head, it's going, find out what animal flow is. So because so what I want to know is, so this other side of things that you're training towards, what is that all about?
Do you know what I love is people's reactions to when I say anything about animal flow. I just love like just leaving a bit of space and going and seeing what the reaction is, because I think people have a really kind of funny idea of it, or what they immediately leap to is that I'm kind of making animal noises and things like that. And but some people think it's yoga and just different animal poses. Yeah, you could be forgiven for thinking that because of the name, but really it's a really dynamic body strength practice, and it's the guy actually doesn't come from a yoga background. The creator of it is a guy called Mike Fitch. I think he's been doing it for 10 to 15 years or so, and it's actually gathering pace now around the world. There are instructors around the world. It's quite a movement. But he's I think his background is in more martial arts and breakdancing and parkour and things like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's all floor-based movement. And there are animal postures that you take up. So there's beast and there's crab and scorpion and ape. But you join all these beautiful, like graceful, strong, like these are strong movements. Like it requires a lot of muscle strength, core strength to make them. You join them up into these beautiful, endless flows, limitless kind of variations of flows. And do you know what the most amazing thing about this, Beth, is that what I find is that it's a similar flow state to writing for me, in that I don't think about anything else. I just kind of, I'm in it. So I'm absorbed by it when I'm doing my animal flow. And when I'm teaching people, because I've just started doing kind of small group sessions, I can see that for them too, that it's a kind of, we're moving, but we're relaxing, kind of zoning out. And people can progress through it really quickly. They can find their own strength and realize that actually they've got potential to increase their skill at this and get better and better. So it's really rewarding to see. So I don't see the two as separate. I don't see writing and this animal flow movement as separate. I see them as really connected, because there's both physical movement and a kind of flow to it as well. I can wax
It sounds
evangelical
amazing.
about it.
You have sold me on it. I totally am going to come to one of your classes and
take
try
a look
it
at some
out.
videos. They're great. Animal flow videos. They're just kind of mesmerizing.
It sounds brilliant. And I love that idea of anything that, just because the modern day world, especially the modern day world of work, is very brain heavy, isn't it? It's very much, you have to be on it all the time. You've got emails flying in and out. You've got things that you have to do. I have never yet met someone who said they've got an average amount of things on their to-do list. They're always telling me it's too much. There's so much to do. And that, where you can find something that gets you in that not thinking about anything else state, sounds amazing.
Back in your body. Back in your body.
Yeah, like back in, and I always know for me there are two things that do that, and I'd love to add some more things to it. Meditation doesn't do it for me. It doesn't work. Well, I haven't made it work yet. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. There might be a day when it does work, but for me, if I play the piano or if I go for a swim, I am in that state.
Yes.
Like that. Those are the two kind of physical things
flow
that
state.
switch my brain into a totally different gear, into that complete flow state. And I think partly because when you're swimming, it's like, let's not breathe in water and drown. So there's that side of it. So you just get really focused on the physical. And when I'm playing the piano, I'm really bad at it. So I'm getting better, but I'm not an excellent piano player. So I really have to concentrate on what I'm doing, and I have to concentrate on my hands and my head and what I'm. So there's no way that anything else can fit in my brain when I'm doing it. And I'm kind of loving the idea of that physicality idea of moving around. I also was in the state of, is this something around like making animal noises and stuff? Because I have heard about things like scream therapy and all that kind of stuff. And
I've
I'm
got
like,
a friend who's a laughter therapist.
Going to the wilderness and screaming sounds amazing.
I've got a friend who's a laughter therapist, and I still haven't done it with her, but she keeps threatening to come and laugh with me. But I find that really intriguing. What was I going to say there about the animal? It'll come back to me. Oh, it was your piano playing and your what was the other thing you were saying about your
swimming?
Yeah, they are both motor sensory, aren't they? So your brain has to respond in a certain way to get your body on board. So there's that unity. I think that's the word, actually, is that unity that's required. You need to be moving your muscles at the same time as thinking. And if you're in that and I guess that's what yoga is about, isn't it? That's yoga does actually mean unity of mind and body. And I think that's what I've been bringing together in my writing therapy group, is that unity of mind and body. And I do actually really call that out. I address that in the sessions as well. I ask people to check in with how they're feeling physically, because emotions are physical. So that, I regularly ask people to check in on that, because they tell, our body is this resource that we just overlook all the time. We think we're just walking brains, but actually there's so much to learn from our bodies.
And I think, if you think about how some people kind of turn off and relax, it's like, I know so many people who, if they need to quieten their brain, will go for a run, or we'll do some meditation, or we'll do some yoga. And what are those things? And I also think that we're probably, many of us in fact are probably guilty of this, is we totally forget about our bodies until something goes wrong with them.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, I've got a sore shoulder because I've been sat at my desk for too many days in a row and haven't moved around enough. And it's like, oh yeah, I should have done that. But taking that active time to join brain and body together can be really powerful.
Yeah, it can be. Like I say, I think we've got a lot to learn from our bodies. And one of the animal flow instructors that taught me actually said, don't forget your skin suit, which is something I think because of the way it sounds, it really stuck in my brain. But don't forget your skin suit really helps me.
I love that, your skin suit. It does remind me of some things that we probably shouldn't talk about on here with skin suits and things. But I'm now. The thing is, now we've passed that on, and we're going to pass it on to our listeners. We're thinking, what we think about our skin suit today.
No, the questions.
Oh, great. So tell me a bit more, because I'm really interested in linking this to joy in your life and thinking about how powerful having some joy is. Maybe for you personally, or for what you with your clients that you work with, what are the sort of things that they're getting out of having some writing-based therapy or some animal flow-based therapy? What is it that's working for them, and how is it helping them to create some more joy?
Yeah, great question. I think that what I'm hearing, because people are very willing to give me feedback about this, which is different from one-to-one psychotherapy. They're kind of more forthcoming with how this has helped them, which I think is kind of really telling in itself, just how kind of impactful and transformative it can be. So what they're telling me is that it's like there are lots of wow moments, lots of kind of connective pieces. So a chance to kind of pause and reflect and realize how you're feeling, and learn from yourself as well. They're kind of, what people are saying is that they recognize themselves more in their writing. It's like they're writing and then going, oh, that's me, getting to know themselves in a different way. And I think that is a source of joy. That kind of, there's a poem, what's it? Who's it by? It'll come back to me. About meeting yourself in the mirror. It's not the Michael Jackson song. It's meeting yourself in the mirror.
We could totally do the Michael Jackson song.
It's the final words are basically sit down and feast on your life, and that is a real that's what I really want to offer people in the therapeutic writing, is that actually they come and meet themselves. And that's what people are saying. It's that kind of pause, that kind of slowing down and pause, and tuning into what it is, who they are, their identity, what it is they want from life, how they can actually make some real changes as well. We take time in these sessions to actually look at the practical changes that people can make that we maybe don't even give ourselves time to think about. So it's an empowering experience for people. And a lot of people that I hear from have actually started, they might not have had a journaling practice before, but they've started to kind of spontaneously write on a more regular basis in their life. And that's helped them find more meaning and more fulfillment in their days.
I love that. So from some of the self-discovery things, also some really practical things about their lives and how they can change or do what they want to do and focus where they want to focus. I love when anything becomes practical and helps people actually do what they want to do. But you're right, unless you do the discovery bit first, it's really hard to decide what those practical things are.
Yes, this isn't just, and I think that is where the joy is, the kind of tangible, this can have an effect on my life. Like I feel empowered now to make this change because they've connected it up. They've looked at themselves, reflected, and had a bit of self-discovery. And I do make special effort to connect that up with then going out of the writing space and out into the life. And so what needs to change then? Because we are our own resource. We're our best resource. That's how I approach my psychotherapy. You're the only expert on yourself, so you're the one that's best placed to make any changes that you need to. And I really do think that writing, we can find ourselves really empowered by writing in this way. So
it's really interesting, isn't it, that idea that I believe it as well. We are our best resource, but if we don't take the time or have the tools or know how to do it, we can get into that situation where we feel a bit stuck, or a bit like we don't know what to do. So it sounds like this type of process could really help people to get unstuck, to think about what do I do next, to rediscover themselves almost.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it is about curiosity, actually, Beth, because when you said stuckness there, the kind of beginning stages of my work, whether it's one-to-one or in writing therapy groups, and actually in Animal Flow, curiosity about your body, is that people are at that point where they are ready to change something. They're still feeling stuck, still feeling frustrated, but they're on the verge of like, okay, what next? And they're starting to feel curious. And I think that's what joy is really underpinned by. One of the things is that kind of childlike curiosity about the world, about themselves. Like they can ask questions and they could wonder. And that's what I harness in my work, is that curiosity, and we try and feed that and nourish it. And I think that's what then starts to help people broaden horizons and look at different perspectives, and that helps them make changes. Like the curiosity is where it begins.
Yeah, and I think that the wonder bit you said there really stuck with me, is like just having that chance and opportunity to wonder about yourself, or wonder about your past or your future, or what do you want, is a really valuable thing to have. And it also makes me think about the other version of wonder, which is how kind of going for a walk and thinking about this stuff is also really powerful as well, isn't it? That whole getting outside, doing stuff, anything where you've got that physical mind connection, it just really makes me consider.
That's the other bit that
wonder
I hadn't
is
said.
such a great word,
Wonder and wonder. Yeah, I actually do walking therapy as well, which I hadn't mentioned.
There you go.
Yeah. So there's some woods nearby, which my husband's got a gym in the woods. So I now have a shepherd's hut down there, which is going to be a therapeutic space when we can get back to that kind of work, one-to-one work. But that's my base at the moment for doing walking therapy from. And you're absolutely right. It's that kind of joining together of movement and wandering. Maybe that's what I should call it.
They should call it. There you go. Take it.
Thank
the
you.
Wonder. Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things about, if I say the term wonder in my head and I'm thinking about the wandering versus the walking side, I'm thinking about the brain side of it for a second.
Yeah.
Is if I'm wondering about something, I don't place any judgment on what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
I don't try and stop myself. It's just allowing that free space. So even the word I find quite freeing.
Yes. Yeah. I really agree with you. And I think it's wonder, like I say, wonder and joy are such childlike things, but we think that they're not for adults. They're not serious enough or something. And actually, I think that's where that's what we're really missing out on. That's where growth is. That's where we can adapt and change, is when we
Yeah.
become quite playful. And in my writing, again, I encourage people to be compassionate for themselves and self-compassion. You know, we can be compassionate for others, but we're not so good at being compassionate towards ourselves. So that's what I cultivate, and I think that's part of wonder as well. They kind of go
Yeah.
hand in hand.
It's really interesting because, like, the terms wonder and joy, you're right, are associated with a more carefree, like childlike
Yeah.
state of being. But I always think that grown-ups are just children with more responsibility, right? We haven't really
No.
changed. And people say to me, "Oh, Beth, you're doing something about work joy. Is there really joy? Is that is that serious enough?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm super serious about the importance of joy in your life. So I think it is serious. I think it's an important thing for us to
Yeah.
consider,
Yes.
and not just to spend all our days miserably or gloomily walking around thinking, 'What am I doing here? Why am I
Mm.
doing this?'
Mm.
Because, like, feeling, even if it's only for a moment, can just light you up. The
Yes.
feeling of joy, the feeling of wonder, the feeling of curiosity are all things that get humans, whatever age you are, excited about
Mm.
life and able to do things and be creative in your thinking. So for me, when I say wonder, I get a very different vibe for if I say go and think about something. I feel like when I think about something, it has to be quite structured and formal, and like it has to have an outcome. If I just go and
Yeah.
wonder about something, it doesn't matter where it goes.
Because far more open, isn't it? You know, it's more permissive. You can kind of, yeah, exactly. You can go where you like with it. Um, yeah, for sure.
Good bit of freedom there.
Mm.
Oh, so interesting. So I'm thinking now, so you do, yeah, I'm going, there's the writing therapy, you've got the animal flow therapy, which I'm totally going to get on board with. I love trying new things. That's part of my curiosity into the world, is
Mm.
try it, give it a go. And walking therapy. And I'm loving the combination of this. And maybe just dig into this a little bit deeper, is this idea that combining anything creative. And you said earlier, and I totally agree with you, creativity isn't just about our traditional views on it
Yeah.
around kind of arts. And a lot of us have the impression, I know so many people do, that they say, oh no, I'm not creative. And when you boil it down, it's because they weren't very good at art at school, or some, not even that they weren't very good, somebody told them they weren't very good at
Yeah.
art at
Yeah.
school, and suddenly their whole world of, they've cut off the world of creativity. So talk to me a little bit more about creativity in the bigger picture thinking.
I think we create all the time, but we're kind of pretty close to it. We don't, like I say, like you just said, actually, we're, especially our education's got a lot to blame for that. I think, you know, in telling us what is creative and what isn't, or if we're a creative person or not. And people tend to talk about themselves in that way. Oh, I'm not very creative, so they dismiss opportunities, or they need to be good at something before they even try something. You know, it can really kind of narrow your world when we carry those labels around with us. Um, Creativity to me means transforming one thing to another. You know, making a meal, making a brilliant cup of coffee. um, you know, being really good at tinkering about in the garden, or, you know, there is skill everywhere, human skill, but we tend to think about the kind of finer arts, you know, being good at drawing, or sculpting, or, you know, even good at writing. I'm not very good at writing, so I can't write. Therefore, you know, we close opportunities down for ourselves all the time. But I think being human is creative. I think our lives, you know, growth, aging, um, birth, pregnancy, all of these things, you know, if you gave me any one example of human activity, it would be creative. Community is creative, because we, you know, this Writing Unbound, the therapeutic writing course that I have just now, we're right at the beginning, and we're creating the community together. We're checking each other out, and we are making ourselves a wee bit vulnerable to see what happens next. And that really is what creativity is about for me. It's about, ooh, like that wonder again. What's going to happen next? Um, so when I think about it that way, it's really liberating, because I see people as creative entities, and if we're creative, then we've got so much still to learn, so much still to grow, and we can really experience more joy in the world. I really believe that.
I love it.
And
And I totally agree with you. Is that we're all creative, but some we've been shut down in some ways
Yes,
to
yeah,
think like that.
and it underpins
I
really.
love the idea of it transforming.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Karen.
what that no, that's what underpins the um, psychotherapeutic model that I'm trained in anyway, is that we are capable of change. That personality, for example, isn't fixed. It's something that we're not fixed in our identities. We can change and adapt all the time. And actually, to be healthy, we should be. We should be creating ourselves, our relationships, our well-being, our habits anew all the time.
I do think there's something again about getting older where we assume that we're kind of set, don't we? It's like that
Yeah.
whole, oh well, I'm here now, this is who I am.
Yes.
But there's
Yeah.
actually probably another 20 different versions of us that could be there
Yeah.
and could be great and exciting and enjoyable, if we opened ourselves up to some of these opportunities, or to not just even sometimes just having a neutral base. It's not like you say I'm super creative. You don't go from I'm not very creative, I'm super, but maybe just go, it's something I can do, it's something I can try. And I do
Yeah.
think, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but this idea that just because we're not good at something doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. I
Yeah.
think we get somehow that, but because a lot of recognition in the world comes from when you get good at something. So you get promoted or you get a new opportunity in your career when you're good at something. You might win medals or certificates when you're a kid if you're good at something. I feel we have a really maybe false association with being good, being joyful.
Yes.
And actually, I'm learning even more now that I get a lot of joy from trying new things, even when I'm not good at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Completely
not
agree.
being good at something isn't the joy.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Just trying something new, even if, or even not even trying something new, but doing something that you love. Exactly. Even if you're not good by world standards, it's that flow state again. I think we're back to that. It's like what helps you just feel in that kind of space of freedom and self-expression, and whatever that is, that's your joy. You know, you don't have to
Yeah,
reach any specific level. And I do think we
it's
are
great.
conditioned, and a lot of the kind of work of therapy is to kind of undo a lot of what's done, undo a lot of those stories that we tell about ourselves, and start to tell a new story. And especially around aging, maybe it's the age I'm at, but I think that it's amazing to see adults go, oh yeah, I can give myself permission to go and try out this new thing, or I can actually, yeah, I do need to have a look at this career that I don't want to kind of um, carry on working in this way when it's not satisfying to me and it's actually making me feel really unwell. That people can change even as they grow old. And I read something recently actually about, oh, what is it? I wish I could remember the quote, but it made you really just want to age and grow old, because it's like you don't stop changing until your very last breath, you know.
Yeah.
It's something like that, and I found
So
it so like,
embrace that
wow,
change.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I could talk for hours more because I want to go into all these different types of therapies that you could offer, and basically get a free therapy session from me while we're on the um on the podcast. But we won't do that because I think it's been amazing listening to you and understanding how all of these things connect together. And I
Mm,
love it when we talk about stuff that it's not like this one box over here and this one box over here, but it's actually a giant web of stuff that all links together that we can really consider.
yes.
So before we finish off, are you okay if I ask you some quick fire questions?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, first one for you, Ruth, is what is one thing that's always guaranteed to bring you personally a little bit of work joy?
Um, oh, I think it's connection. I think it's having connection with another person. Um, like being able to be seen and heard and known with someone, whether that's a client or a colleague or um, yeah, anyone. I think it's that, and that can be through a conversation or it can be through an email. I think it's all about, for me, it always has been about that human relationship, the connectedness. So I try
Love it.
every day to have that kind of real conversation with someone, and it can sometimes be about challenge, but it's about being met. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And that importance of that connection and being able to have a conversation or talk about something or email about something is,
It's reaching
a
out and being
great
met. Yeah.
version of what is WorkJoy. Yeah, love it. What book are you currently reading?
Oh my goodness, I'm one of those people that have like a stack of books by their bedside table, an
Me
aspirational
too.
stack. And oh gosh, yeah. Anyway, I collect them. I'm a bit of a book hoarder. I absolutely, when we can, and I think we can now actually here, is my absolute dream is to just go and sit in a bookshop and with the best coffee and just spend hours there. It's what I love to do. But by my bed is a book called Shuggy Bane. It's by an author called Douglas Stewart. I think it won the Booker Prize last year. I have got a tendency to read some quite dark stuff, and this is not an easy tale. It's a bit of a tough read about growing up in Glasgow in the 1980s. Yeah, but it's incredible. It's beautifully written. So that's my fiction that I've got at the moment, and my non-fiction is a book called The Power of Ritual. I don't know whether you've heard of that. It's by a guy called
No.
Casper. I think it's Tetulke or Ketulke. The Power of Ritual, and really it's about turning everyday activities into soulful. I think he calls them soulful activities. So it's really about what I do. It's about things like writing and meditating, if that's your thing, moving, but making rituals out of them. So making time and space to really give attention to them in your day and squeeze the most juice out of them. It's a really great book.
Great. Because I am also a book obsessive. I made a thing a few years ago. So whenever anyone recommended me a book, I just go and order it straight away, which means my pile is massive.
That's what I do. So,
but I just love them. I love books. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. They sound amazing. Thank you for sharing those. Right. One thing I'd love to ask you is, what's the best or most useful bit of advice that someone has given you in your life that you find yourself always coming back to?
This is so easy because it's something I hear now myself saying to others so much as well, in my work and, friends, and if there's any difficult times that friends are having and stuff, and actually to myself too. It's one of those ones that come back. And it was a supervisor that said it to me. So as a counsellor, as a therapist, I see a supervisor every month who I take my stuff to, and it's an incredible support. It's someone I don't work with anymore, but she said at the end of a session, as I was leaving, just going through a door, she said, she just tapped me on the shoulder. It's a really memorable moment. She just said, "You have your own resources." And it was just a moment of such empowerment. It was almost like if something switched in me, and it's like a real recognition that actually, yeah, I'm walking around with all my skills and my knowledge and my energy and just what we've been talking about, that actually it's us, only ever us, that can make the change. But we can look to each other and play and joy to be empowered to do so. You have your own resources. It really comes back to me time and time again.
Love that. And I love that you pass it on as well. So that's a great thing to think about. And on that, I would love if you've got one thing that you think people in our audience could go and do, really easy thing today, tomorrow, the next day, maybe build it as a habit or a ritual, as you're saying there about that book, that you think would help them to get a bit more work joy. What would you recommend?
Oh, it's going to be really obvious, but I would really encourage people to write. And I don't really subscribe to, the kind of daily journaling or the gratitude diary. That's not really my thing. It's the way I write is I will write whatever comes up on any given day. And if I look back, it's so different. Sometimes it's an absolute rant. And sometimes it's and sometimes it's just reflections. Sometimes it can be quite philosophical. And it's not every day, but it's when I need it. So it's a really kind of loose and easy habit that I've built up now that is there if I need it, and I do often turn to it. But writing, I think it's so supportive, and it can really build that relationship with yourself that is perhaps needed strengthening for you to squeeze more joy out of life and to do the next right thing.
Do you know, also, Ruth, it's so lovely to hear someone say you don't have to do it every day and you don't have to do it in this prescribed way. I think there's a lot of noise in the world, as we all know there is, on social media and things of saying, no, you must do a gratitude journal, you must do it every
In
day,
this
you must
way,
do it at 5
yeah.
a.m, you must do, all of these things. And it's so lovely to say, use it when you need it. Put
That
it out there,
intuitive sense, building
rant
that.
at it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just much more real, and I'm all for the real. Like, we live in the real world. Not all of these things are going to be possible.
And you get
all the
to own
time,
it that way.
That idea of turn to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Thank you, Ruth, so much for coming on. Where can people find out more about you, your work, and get in touch with you?
Yes, they can. I'm just about to launch my new website, so that's ruthcoachtherapy.com. That'll be ready very soon. And that has details of my psychotherapy, one-to-one work, and my therapeutic writing work, and soon my animal flow work as well. And so you'll see my different therapeutic writing products there as well. And I'm also on Instagram at Ruth Coates Therapy.
Fab. And we will put those details into the show notes and on our social media so that people can click straight through if they want to get on board with me and get your animal flow classes and find out more about you. So, Ruth, it's been delightful. Thank you very much for coming on, for sharing your story with me, and for sharing such great advice.
It's been really wonderful talking to you, Beth. It's been so much fun and really interesting. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode with Ruth Coates. I have so many takeaways from here. The first thing is I'm so excited about maybe going and trying this animal flow thing. It sounds like so much fun, and I personally love trying new things. It's the new and shiny, the exciting, the thing I haven't tried before that always gets me going. So really excited to do that, so Ruth won't be able to keep me away. I also think there's some really great practical stuff in here that we can all think about, like the unsent letter. What is the stuff that you want to say to somebody that you don't need to send, but maybe helps get it out of your head or helps stop it being an issue for you? I also love the idea of wandering while you wander and the idea of walking therapy. I find walking massively therapeutic anyway, but the idea of having those conversations while you're doing it, what a great way to consider things. And my final and amazing takeaway here is that one that she had as advice that she really uses. I love this, which is that you have your own resources. And in my head, whenever I think of that now, I'm thinking about Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and I'm a bit obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, and I think about it quite a lot. But the idea that Dorothy was already had the resources she needed to get home. She had the magic red slippers on, and all she had to do was to use them. Now, I obviously don't have a pair of those slippers, although I would love to. But think about this. We do all have our own resources. How are we going to use them? What are we going to call upon in different situations? And that one is just really, really sticking with me. So I thought I would share that with you all. Do look in the show notes to find out more about where you can get in contact with Ruth. Maybe you're interested in the animal flow or the writing as therapy stuff. Really great, interesting and different ways of thinking about how we can help ourselves. Make sure you're following us at Create WorkJoy on all the socials, whichever one suits you. We're on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. We also have the website www.createworkjoy.com, where you can find out more about the WorkJoy Way coaching program, which is a 16-week program to help you create and cultivate more joy in your working life. And upcoming is our club WorkJoy, launching later on this year, which is a fabulous developing community of people who are all trying to get more joy in their working life, with some inspiration for you all to do that. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.